I try to be a good partner. I try to have a lot of sympathy for the fact that their priorities are not mine. And then I try to engage deeply with them all the way through the life cycle. What's the feature you're trying to build? Why are you trying to build it? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What data are you going to collect? Let's go through the schema. Let's make sure you're thinking about this in the right way. So. I'm Aleatha Parker-Woods. I'm a principal privacy engineer currently at AWS. As a principal privacy engineer, I've worked both in the context of a privacy program, so acting as the consultant to the business to help them improve their privacy posture. These days, I'm more focused on building privacy tooling. So creating tools that everybody can use to improve their privacy posture and taking some of the best practices and turning them into things that more people can use. So I think one of the most important things that people sometimes miss out on when they're standing up a privacy program is getting engaged with the business stakeholders very early, getting a handle on what the priorities are, and helping them to understand the risks at a business level very early. I think sometimes we jump immediately to the problem and the solution that goes along with that problem, but there's a whole education process that has to go along with that to say, hey, you're taking on this risk that comes with these potential fines, that comes with this loss of trust. So getting in with the business stakeholders as soon as possible is going to make it much, much easier as you start standing up policies and procedures and tools to get people invested because they understand what they're getting for their money. Start from the business, but I think for better or for worse, there's now a pretty good library of regulations and judgments out there. I think early on in GDPR was a little bit of a Wild West. Everyone was looking at the law and trying to read the tea leaves and understand what how things were going to be interpreted. So obviously, I think you need to start from the fundamentals of your business. You really need to start from customer trust. Regulations are just one way in which that expresses that, but meeting the law is not enough if you're violating what your customers expect you to do. So you start from your customers, you need to deeply understand what they're going to care about. And then you work backwards from that through the regulations to say, okay, I'm going to start with this. Obviously, everything starts with data inventory. Okay, now I need to figure out with this data inventory, how am I going to stand up all of my basic legal obligations, DSAR, deletion, all of that. And then what can I do above and beyond that's really going to move the needle on trust for my customers? And that's very business specific. So I'll give you a good surprise and a bad surprise. I think one good surprise has been the degree to which people not in the privacy field are more and more privacy aware and privacy invested. I have really loved working with so many passionate product teams who weren't in the privacy business, who said, hey, I do want to do the right thing by my customer. I just need you to help me understand what that is. So that was a wonderful surprise. I was very happy about that. I think the bad surprise has just been from the outside of the privacy field, it can be not obvious how much variation there is in the legislative landscape. Once you actually get into the details, you're like, oh, this company has a consent decree. This company is operating in these three jurisdictions, and this one's only operating in this one. So it's just not a level playing field at all. And so each company has a very idiosyncratic set of things that they're going to have to do, promises they're going to have to keep. There's no checkbox for privacy. Everyone says that, but I think that's not just about the human aspects of things. It's also about the degree to which things are completely different in terms of environment. I mean, I think I face the same challenges everybody else does. You have to work through the business. You have to convince them that this is a priority. You have to coordinate across a fairly large organization. I think privacy, there are very few concerns that are as cross-cutting as privacy. Security comes very close, but security doesn't have the lawyers in the room. So I think to be a really effective privacy person, you both have to be able to track these very broad work streams that have tens, maybe even hundreds of people in them. And you have to be able to work effectively as a translator between different types of concerns. You have to be able to take legalese and turn it into something that a developer speaks, and then something that a person who's concerned with P&L speaks. So it's, I think that being able to message effectively to all of these different groups has been the challenge for me and the thing that I continue to work on. I have been privileged in that I often get tapped in relatively early, which I really enjoy. I think people come to me because they want to build something from the ground up that's going to be the right thing. But I've also done sort of bread and butter privacy work, like assisting with data inventories. So I've tried to make sure that I worked with technical teams all the way through the privacy lifecycle, just so I could understand it from their perspective. I think also having a background both as a software developer and as a data scientist helped, because I have been on the other side of the fence saying, hey, I just want to use this data. I just want to build a feature. Like, what do I have to do to get my hands on the data? Tell me. So I have a lot of sympathy for being on that side of the table, facing down pages of policies and arcane legal language, being like, I just need the data. Tell me how to get it. So I think I try to be a good partner. I try to have a lot of sympathy for the fact that their priorities are not mine. And then I try to engage deeply with them all the way through the life cycle. What's the feature you're trying to build? Why are you trying to build it? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What data are you going to collect? Let's go through the schema. Let's make sure you're thinking about this in the right way. So. I think we've already talked about the importance of engaging with the business. And I think the other thing that I would say is get really crisp with yourself about the risks that you're facing. Make sure that you're not focused in on a problem which is technically interesting, but doesn't actually move the needle for the business. I think sometimes we can find ourselves in the business of over optimizing on some particular aspect just because there's a bunch of really cool papers about it. And you really do have to bring it back at the end of the day to what am I doing that's going to protect our customers? What are the risks my customers are facing? And how is this going to move the needle for that? So I think that's my best practice advice. I predict that the privacy tools market is going to continue to evolve. As you will know, there are some cool tools coming out. You guys are working on some, and there are a bunch of other companies that are working in the space that I'm very excited to see mature. I think we're going to see more clarity around best practices in privacy. I'm seeing an evolution of the field towards security, where you now start to have some codification of the field. You have a sense of who the different types of specialists are in the field. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. And I predict that companies will continue to struggle with the basics, much like with security. I think there are a lot of companies out there that are still trying to wrap their head around data inventory, let alone what they're going to do once they finish inventorying it. So I am hoping over time we'll be able to help them bring themselves above the privacy poverty line. Much like people saying Christmas should be every day of the year, I think every day is Data Privacy Day, but it does give me a nice nudge to go reconnect with my colleagues, reconnect with my community, which I really love. As I think I've said before, this is a really wonderful community. So I'm going to celebrate by reaching out to some of my favorite privacy colleagues, catching up, talking about what the big picture problems are that we're facing and what we're going to do.